Greetings from the other side. Many thanks to Icy Sedgwick and Holly Elston and others for organising this haunted weekend. I'm Richard Sugg, and I'd like to take you back now to a couple of cases, funnily enough, occurring in 1896 and 1897. The first of them is the notorious case of Silverton Abbey in England, where a veteran of the Raj takes a house in the south of England for around £300, presently finds that it is haunted and he cannot rent it for so much as £40. It is very difficult to keep servants there. It is a nice house with a fine orchard, and he names it, to my infinite fury and frustration, Silverton Abbey, which is not its name. He gives various tantalising clues, which I warn you look easy enough to follow up and prove to be a deep well of time thrown into the darkness, where you seek to find out what, where, who this building actually is for many fruitless hours. However, I did manage, by certain clues about its distance from London and its private schools, to find out that it's probably in or near Bedford. That's about the best I could do. The author of the accounts, who features in the Standard extensively in 1896, gives himself pseudonymously as Brueggeling, and perhaps unnecessarily or wrong-headedly is overly gallant about the identity of his landlord. He will not reveal him either, although we learn finally that it's in fact a landlady. And as far as we can gauge it, the history of the house is that Mrs. Q, this is as close as we get, has a rather unfortunate, wayward, drunken husband who makes her life rather difficult while he's alive, but then continues to make her life rather difficult after he's died, and is possibly, it's not really clear from this tale, the basis of the hauntings in Silverton Abbey at the time when Brueggeling complains bitterly that the law ought to offer him some provision for an unexpected ghost. So what happens? Well, various members of the SPR or the public or Oxford University come down to investigate. There have been strange noises. There has been an unearthly, blood-curdling scream which has terrified the wits out of two servants who've only been induced to stay until then on receipt of very high wages. And there has been the spectre of a woman, tall, with heavy dark eyebrows. This figure has been seen in various locations and has terrified one servant by bending over her bed. So, as it goes on in the grand old style of Victorian investigations, we have various men, a revolver, and a dog. These are the skeptics. We have others, Fitzmaurice and Pooley, who take matters more seriously and hear the classic sound of heavy furniture being dragged in the night, as well as a colossal bang sounding at one point. And next off, we have that most desirable, but these days rather tabooed, technical accessory to any ghost investigation, the child. Several schoolboys from the local school are roped in to this investigation and, willingly or not, are advised to stand watch in the dark during the night with two investigators. And one of them, while he's of course on his own, M.R. James couldn't have written this better, is standing when he sees a light emerge from a wall, and a woman, the tall woman with dark, heavy eyebrows, passes through the room, but also stops to look at him. That is, seems to be aware of him, as by the look of it, she seemed to be rather aware and attentive when she bent over a servant's bed, and at one point was apparently strangling somebody in the manner of sleep paralysis nightmare. One other detail which is rather fascinating here is that one of the investigators describes a peculiar clinking sound. Now, they find it very hard to exactly describe, but it sounds roughly like the kind of background microwave humming that was suffered by Keith Linder in the Bothell Hell House. a kind of pinging noise which Matthew Manning described as like sonar, pinging off the radiators and windows in his very haunted house in the 1960s and I think early 70s, and it possibly also resembles sounds of an MRI scan which were heard in the case of a Scottish haunting by a Dr. Logan. So Silverton Abbey finally goes cold as far as we can tell. If anyone really does have further data on it or a clue as to the identity, I would love to take this further, but that's probably enough now before we move over to France in 1897, where I have to warn you that matters are much, much worse. Thanks for listening.